Hello. Today I'm going to start back up with the minor arcana where I left off. I talked about the minor arcana generally, and I talked about the wands, and I talked about the cups. The minor arcana has 10 cards, and then 4 court cards, and they go from wands to cups to swords to coins, and that moves from fire to water to air, which is the swords, what we'll be dealing with today, to earth. Those are going from the subtle esoteric elements to the grosser esoteric elements, no judgment intended, but just from the more subtle to the more solid might be another way to think of it. Air is a masculine suit. It's like fire. As the masculine suits develop, as they go from the ace to the 10, they tend to not manage the energy of manifestation. So we're going from the ace, the 1, which is the beginning initial force, and as it moves from 1 to 10, it moves more into the area of manifestation. This is more problematic for the wands and for the swords, for fire and for air. I'm going to use the same 4 decks that I usually use, the Aleister Crowley deck, which was drawn by Lady Frida Harris, the Rider-Waite deck, which was drawn by Pamela Coleman Smith, and 2 of my decks, my newly published Subtle Tarot deck, formerly Dream Tarot, which, if you're interested, you can check my website, melissa-townsend.com, or email me, melissa@melissa-townsend.com. melissa-townsend.com. And the other deck that I'm going to use, I'm looking for the box for that, but I can't find it. In any event, it's called the Melissa Townsend's Tarot. It was formerly the L. Teddy's Tarot, and that also you can find information on my website. So before I get going with the swords, I should tell you that first of all, follow me on Instagram, because I'm about to do this on Instagram. I started today, which is a really good way to learn the tarot, is to pick a card every day. It's a good meditative tool as well. You could then meditate on the card. You can see what comes up for you about it. But the beauty of picking a card every day is that then you can see what happens in the course of the day, and that tells you something about the card. You begin to have your own iconography, your own language for talking about the card. You have your own personal meanings that you associate with that card, and you start to know that card on a personal level, so that you no longer have to listen to videos like this or read booklets, no matter how good they are, that tell you what the card means. So, speaking of booklets, there's a really good booklet that comes with mine begins with a section that talking as if you've picked the card for the day, and then goes on to discuss the meaning of the card. I really like this booklet. It comes with both of my decks, and it's really grounded and not at all airy-fairy, and so it's really easy to use, and I myself am frequently impressed when I look at it. So on Instagram, I'm melissatownsend.art, melissatownsend.art, A-R-T, and I'm going to be picking a card every day, and saying something about it. You can do that with me. All right. Now we get on to the swords. Swords, again, are the air. They represent the sword of discrimination. They have to do with communication, and they have to do with strife, of course, because it's a weapon, and the mind. The mind is ruled by the element of air, and as we know, of course, the mind, nothing is either good nor bad, but thinking make it so, as Hamlet famously said. So the way that you think really structures how you see the world, and many of the difficulties that we encounter in life have to do with things that happen in our mind and not necessarily so much in reality. Swords are positive as well. Justice has a sword. That would be the use of the sword of discrimination. You can see, there we go, different aspects of justice, different ones of the card show, of justice. So the Ace of Swords shows the beginning of the element of air. It shows an idea. a thought, a question, because it's a focused thought. So if the Ace of Swords comes up, usually that shows a focused mental energy. You know what you're asking, you know what you're doing, you know where you're heading, you have a plan, you have an idea that is right, that has integrity. When it's reversed, it either you're not thinking correctly, you don't know what you're thinking, your thoughts are scattered. Very often it shows up when somebody asks the same question over and over and over again without thinking about the answer that they're getting. It can show up when other people's energies are directed against you as well. One thought, one idea, one focus, you know what you're doing. You add something else to that, and what happens? Two ideas are not necessarily better than one. Then we get stasis. We get, Crowley calls it peace, and of course it is a kind of peace. But it is, you've got two ideas, they're fighting, they've reached a balance point, but you can't really make any movement. Once you start to make movement, with the threes, you get the first formation, the first solid sort of thing. So let's say, so you had the one idea, a second idea came in, a third idea comes in, and something's got to be let go. The third idea is sad sorrow. I find that this card is not necessarily as bad as it looks, that often there is sadness or sorrow, but it's a kind of realization. So if you think of it as the development, you have the idea, you have the second one comes in that kind of confuses it. This is the awareness. Something is going to have to go. Something is going to be lost. And there's a sadness that comes with it. Usually when this card comes up, there is a sadness. There is a recognition. There are tears frequently. But it's often a good thing. Usually after that, you can move on to whatever else you need to, whatever else needs to be moved on to. Of course, then you add yet another idea, and this kind of doubles the energy of the two, and you have it's called truce often, but it is it's kind of like the two with there's a team, and the team is everybody's at a stasis. You don't really, there's no satisfactory answer for anyone. The Rider-Waite deck shows a perhaps more peaceful but possibly death-like solitude. Often when the four comes up, it can both show this stasis of lack of not being able to move ahead, but frequently it does often show that kind of retreat or aloneness. It's not necessarily good or bad, it's temporary regardless of what it is, because then, so once again you have the truce and you have something, you have the stasis, you have something come into the picture and it upsets all of the apples, the entire apple cart. The 5, just as in all of the 5s, is not considered a happy card. The 5 is defeat. You have that other element come in and it like blasts yours away. Again, it's important to remember that the minor arcana cards are events, events. They don't signify like your overall life. They don't signify a whole phase. They show something not working out, or the sense of it not working out. If that card is reversed, it's not exactly a success, but not exactly a defeat. So then we move to the 6, which in all of the suits is the most positive. So you have the defeat, but now you figure out what to do. You find your way through it. The science is what Crowley calls it. The movement from a sorrowful circumstance to peace, a peaceful or positive one. Or I like the solving the puzzle, the figuring it out, which is similar to the science idea. And again, for the deck that I use, I have so many decks and did so many readings at a certain time that I had all of these associations myself with it, and I preferred the abstract quality of something like this, where what it could just bring up for me whatever it needed to bring up without my having to look at a picture that said something. It starts to be too many pictures. But you have, most of the time early on, it's nice to have the pictures. So you solve the problem using your brain, and then yet another idea comes into play, and what do you do with that? You try to hide it. You can't deal with, you can only deal with so many ideas, and futility is what Crowley calls it. But most of the time I find when this comes up, there's a hidden agenda. It's like, okay, one more puzzle pieces come in that doesn't fit. You don't really want everybody to know about it, so you push it under the bed. A lot of times this comes up when people are trying to hide some particular piece of information from somebody else, or when they're not being completely honest about their own hidden agendas in terms of doing whatever they're doing. One more thing comes in and you can't hide something else. Now you're stuck. Now you don't, one more idea and it's just too much. You can't figure out what to do. This is usually a temporary situation, and it also usually, there's also usually a way that you could get out of it if you weren't so like caught up in your own mind. But from where you are, the easy solution, like in this one, those could be picked up, and in this one, usually she's like so loosely wrapped that, and could take off, she could get out of it. But you can't see where you are for now, so you just have to accept being stuck. The 9 is perhaps the least pleasant of the cards. So you were stuck, and then something else comes into the picture, and it totally freaks you out. That's where you are with the 9. Up at night, worrying, anxious, not able to sleep, totally freaked out by what and Crowley calls his cruelty. That is the 9. And then we get to the final manifestation of the mental capacity, and we have the 10, which is a death of sorts. What Crowley calls it, ruin. I like this version of mine. I think it's really nice because it also suggests a kind of a mythic or a cathartic, the notion of losing a skin that you need to lose, and a kind of spiritual aspect to it, that it's a kind of death, but it allows for a rebirth, as bad as it might feel at the time. And again, we're talking about a particular incident, a particular experience. Something is coming to an end, something is not working out. How big or little it is, how important that experience is, really depends upon the other cards that come up in a reading around it. Then we start to get to the court cards. Again, we're talking about people who exhibit the use of the mind. And the first one is the king. The king would be the fire of air. Those are two that go well together. He is a professional man who uses his mind like a professor or a businessman. Computers are considered to be ruled by air, and this was drawn back in the 90s when people didn't have flat screens. So this is a man who uses his mind to be successful. He's not the most emotional guy on the block. He's rational, figures things out, goes in that way. This is not the person to be touchy-feely with. Again, that's a very important energy to have at certain times. And sometimes it comes up when people need to be a little bit more rational in terms of their approach to a particular situation. The queen is water of air, and she is considered the queen of sorrows, in the sense not just that she's suffering, but that she is able to overcome suffering. She's able to move through suffering. She's able to to use her emotions to move beyond a sorrowful situation, or to deal with a sorrowful situation. When I drew this, I was thinking of Jackie Kennedy after JFK was shot, but the notion of being able to overcome or deal with the sorrowful circumstances that happen in life without being dragged down by them. The Prince of Swords is, that would be heir of air, and he is the bad boy. He's the hothead, although hothead would seem to be seem to imply fire, but he's the one who is sure of himself and going to jump in, fix any situation with brute force, really, with the power, with using his sword. Not the one who's going to really sit and think about it, the one who's going to, rush in, take care of it, maybe get in over his head, because he has a tendency to be too aggressive too quickly. But again, sometimes this is a good energy to have. Sometimes you just need to go cut the things out that are in the way. And the Princess of Swords I like to think of as like the hero, the protagonist at the beginning of any kind of mythological or hero story, where there's a certain kind of innocence, where the person wants to be a hero, but they're not quite as aggressive or hot-headed, and they don't have the level of experience that this guy has. So they're not going to go rushing in the same way. They might rush in some, but they want to be the hero. They want to, but something also holds them back from just jumping in and thinking that they're going to be the one that solves it all. Unless, of course, they're reversed, in which case there's more of a tendency for it to be a youthful person who doesn't understand that they're getting in over their head, or that youthful quality of our own, that each of us have. So that is a quick look at the suit of swords. Next time I will look at the coins. It's a lot to take in, each one of those, but as I said, a good way to learn the cards and to learn what kinds of thing they mean is to pick a card a day. And please do follow me on Instagram, melissatownsend.art, and I'll be doing that over the next few weeks. All right. And I will try to post the coins before another year goes by. Talk to you soon. Bye.